We celebrated the history of women this month and across the globe on March 8th, International Women's Day. And this past Monday, the 25th, it was National Women in Wine Day here in the U.S. So appropriately, my guest for this episode is an accomplished international woman in wine.
See, in those days, that's in the Franco days, and women were, well, let's say, second-class citizens, okay? So you were supposed to just not be too smart because then you will not marry well. And, think of a life, pleasing your husband and all that.
That path she did not take. Not fully, anyway. She's Marimar Torres from Spain's Catalonia region, but as you'll hear, she loves living in California, especially Sonoma County's Russian River Valley, where she presides over Marimar Estate, Vineyards, and Winery as president and CEO. Yet she continues to be a trailblazer and a jet setter. That's right, I chose from the upper echelon for this episode. I'm Jeff Davis. On the Wine Road is brought to you by Sonoma Clean Power. For those of you in the area, learn how your actions can make a greater impact with clean, renewable energy at poweringeverydaymoments.org. That's poweringeverydaymoments.org. If you look back over my last 5 episodes, you'll see 3 were women. That wasn't an intentional plan on my part. It just kind of worked out that way. That female-to-male ratio is much greater than the 14% of women who are lead winemakers in California. Just 14% of all winemakers. They have a ways to go to equal the gender gap. However, according to a study in 2019, female ownership or co-ownership represented 38% of California wineries. As you heard today, my guest is a president and CEO, as well as the founder of Marimar Estate. That's my attempt at the Spanish pronunciation, but it can be anglicized as Marimar Estate. We sat at her dining room table and had a wonderful discussion. She's very proud of being part of a successful winemaking and wine-growing family business that dates back to 1870 in Vilafranca del Penedès, Spain. But your family reaches as far back as the 1500s?
Yeah, I think it was the 16th century, which is exactly that we found records that the family was growing grapes, right? But in 1870, it was 4 generations ago that my forefather, whatever you call that, started build the winery and started to produce the wines. And then from then it's now the 5th generation from father to son, okay, here in California, the first one from mother to daughter, right?
Nice, yeah.
And what do I feel? I feel really good that I make the wines that I like to drink. I mean, every time that I drink one of our wines, today we had someone over for lunch, and I thought, God, I love that wine. And it's the one that we make. But of course, it's not me. It's a team effort.
Right. So since the beginning of when the 2 brothers, the Torres brothers, got together in the 1800s, exportation of the wines was the plan for them. And was the wine successful locally as well?
Ooh. I think so, but...
probably, if they continued.
I can tell you the story that I know.
Sure.
You want to hear it? So It was 2 brothers, and in those days, in Catalonia, the elder brother inherited the fortune, right? And the second brother inherited nothing. And so the second brother had to depend on the first. And the older one. And this ancestor of mine did not like that, so he emigrated to Cuba. And he went on a boat, and he didn't have any money, so he worked as a cabin boy. And when they got to Cuba, he worked for a company that paid him not much, but then he slept under the desk, I am told, and therefore he saved money until he had, as I understand it, 500. What would they be? Something
in Cuba,
in Cuba, I don't remember. Anyway, 500 something, and then he sent that fortune. For him, it was a small fortune to an oil company because he said that he wanted to invest in them. And of course, it wasn't much money, but they thought, as a boy, and they thought it was really cute. So they accepted it, and guess what? That really made a fortune because the oil boom started then. So then he went back to Spain, a rich man, and his brother then was the one who stayed there in Spain and handled the winery, and he then created a shipping business. Because the wine, once it was made, it was very irregular, the shipments. And he said, okay, fine, I'll have my own shipping company and then I will not have any problem. He was just a bit of a trailblazer, right? And that's what I hear. He also had some other businesses, but I forget what.
Trailblazing runs in your family, I think.
Oh, I think so. Yeah, my father was too. And so is my brother. I have to say, my brother brought to Spain the French varieties. Cabernet, Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, all of that was not grown in Spain until my brother brought it in.
Yeah, good for him. And Torres family still grows that.
Absolutely. Yes.
And your website says that you've been in the business your whole life. So out of curiosity, I was wondering, after you obtained the business and economic degree at the University of Barcelona, in what capacity were you working with the family business prior to that?
Well, I was my father's assistant.
Perfect.
And, Well, I remember my brother. See, in those days, that's in the Franco days, okay? And women were, well, let's say, second-class citizens, okay? So you were supposed to just not be too smart because then you will not marry well. And, think of a life, pleasing your husband and all that. And I remember very well that my father didn't want me to study too much. And it's thanks to my mother that I know 6 languages, because my mother said, it's okay for a lady to speak languages. So when I was 6, she put me in a German school because she said that's the most difficult of them. So we'll get you here.
Start there.
It's true. And then when I was 13, I started learning English and then French and blah, blah, blah.
That's amazing, yeah. 6 languages, that's impressive.
Well, yeah, but it's not very impressive that I wasn't able to have a real, between you and me, sorry. My business and economics degree is very small. There was a 3-degree thing, so I got all the 2 first ones. Well, today it's different, but anyway, it's a very tiny degree and my father did not allow me. I had to play to even get to study that. I remember telling my brother to convince my father that I should study more, because otherwise I would go to Villafranca, where the winery is, and in those days there were no freeways, so it was a 2-hour car ride, and I said, if I go to Villafranca, I will never get married well. So he said, okay, fine, you can study 3 more years.
Wow. Yeah, a lot of things to figure out back then, and heaven forbid you're too smart.
Exactly, yeah.
You don't want to be smarter than your husband.
Exactly, not at all.
Following your degree, though, you chose to work in distribution yourself, and you traveled extensively, so you did get around quite a bit.
Yeah, I was handling the exports, and actually I started with the United States because it really was my father's idea. He saw that was, I had just finished my studies, and he had gone to New York on a mission organized by the Spanish government, and he saw that there was a market in the United States. We had a distributor who had us convinced that, I'm talking about 1967, okay?
I was just going to ask, yeah.
Yeah, so in those days, our wine was selling for 99 cents a bottle. And my father was very upset, but the distributor said, no, you cannot sell Spanish wine for more than that. So he saw on that trip that he thought there was more of a chance. And then he organized, a visit was organized of a group of retailers from the United States called the Wine and Spirits Guild of America, and they went to many wineries in Spain, and in both in sherry country and in wine, table wine country, and the table wine they bought was ours, and the one other sherry, and they put their orders together, and it was 1,200 cases, and believe me, that was a lot in those days, and at the prices that would retail for $149. So my father said, "See, there is future here." So then he asked me to go with him on his first trip around the United States, 3 months. Traveling with my father, and because we wanted to save money, we slept in the same room. So I tell you, it was memorable. But anyway, we only in Los Angeles, which is where our distributor, the 99-cent distributor, was and lived. We spent a whole month in Los Angeles. Oh. And finally we convinced him, and we started to sell him wine that he sold at $149.
Wow, that's nice. Did you have much hand in that at all, or?
No, I was my father's assistant, and I learned from him a lot.
Now, I did read that initially, being a woman, that you weren't taken too seriously in the wine business either, but that didn't stop you, did it?
Well, sometimes it's like you expect not to be taken seriously. That's the sad part about it. And that happens all over the world. You know, when a woman doesn't expect to be treated seriously, she thinks that it's normal.
It's hard to rise to the ranks if you have that attitude.
And then at some point you think, oh, maybe I'll put one foot in front of the other. Oh, I can do it. And then another foot in front of the other. And that's how it happens, right?
Yeah. So were you in the U.S. from the late 60s until you moved here in 75?
Yeah, I was traveling to the United States. But then I started to travel in other countries. Like I remember traveling to Asia and to, I don't know, all kind of countries, in mostly in Europe. Yeah, Europe, I remember Africa very well. And then I ended up coming to live here in 75 because I married a wine and restaurant critic.
Oh, nice.
And yes, we had a publication that in those days was the Parma. It was pre-Parker days, and he was the best read. And he had said that one of our Spanish wines was the best in Spain. And so of course I had to meet him, right? And guess what?
I thought you were going to say, of course I had to marry him.
Right.
You met him first.
Well, it took 2.5 years, but we ended up getting married, yeah. Much to my father's dismay, if you can imagine. Well, I mean, the only daughter, and she gets married to a guy who, yes, we had wonderful food and wines, but he didn't have any money to speak of, no fortune, no family fortune, and he was not a marquis, he was not in the wine business, the opposite of the wine business, right? And not only that, but thousands of miles away from parental control, right? So, no, he was not happy. But we were. He told me that this marriage is a mistake and it's not going to last more than a year, and it lasted 4. Okay,
well,
so
that's a success then, I guess. Huh?
I proved him wrong, and then after 4 years we were divorced, and then after that, my father started to think that it was a good idea to invest outside of Spain. Because Franco wasn't there anymore and things were, a little unstable. And so we invested in Chile first in 1979.
Smart.
Yes, and my brother loved Chile, and we still have the winery there now.
Oh, great.
And then after that, I was able to convince him to buy this, very small property compared to Spain and to Chile, 56 acres. And I started planting it in 86.
That was here.
That was here, yeah.
What made you choose Sonoma County and this area, Russian River Valley?
I was looking for the right place for a year and a half, and I went all the way north to Mendocino, south to Monterey, and I remember coming to this property, which had been an apple orchard, and the apples had been taken out, and it was ready to be planted with vines, but the owner ran out of money. So it was beautiful. It was so beautiful. And I remember my brother calling and telling, and then I had a viticulturist who was advising me, and he said, this is very cool here, so it will be good for Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, but not much else. And I thought, I like Burgundies, no problem. So then my brother called me and said, but how do you know it's good for Pinot Noirs and Chardonnays and vines? And I said, I don't know, but it's very beautiful. And guess what? I lucked out. There were no vineyards whatsoever. There was one vineyard, Rued, Chardonnay. But I would start to plant Pinot Noir in 88 when nobody was drinking, not only Pinot Noir, but no red wine. So
not as much, no.
Yeah.
Merlot was getting big about that time.
Yeah, I lucked out.
It is a beautiful property, too.
Thank you.
And a lot of hillsides, so that's helpful. That gives it a little bit more character.
That's right.
And lots of trees and...
Yeah,
that's a beautiful view up
beautiful.
here at your house. But you kept working. When you moved here, Torres Imports expanded from 15,000 cases to 150,000 cases in 10 years. So you were kicking it up.
Yeah, that's true. Well, the sales had gone down in a couple of years. I really just, at that time, I was not that interested anymore. I was still living in Spain, of course, and I had met my husband-to-be, and I was, more interested in California than in Spain, to tell you the truth. And so my brother took on an importer, and they did a terrible job. In 2 years, they went from 50,000 to 15,000 cases.
Yeah.
And then I remember my brother telling me when I came to live here, this is not, this market is never going to work. Why don't you just have kids and have a family? And okay, we'll see. But I remember that the first year we went from 15,000 to 18,000 cases. I thought, oh, that's not bad. And then the second year we went from 15,000 to 30,000. And I started to get excited.
Was this you doing your work?
Yeah. I was taking care of the sales to the United States and Canada. Yeah. And in Canada as well. Canada was our number one market. We got to sell 60,000 cases from nothing. Yeah, so it was,
No fee, no taxes or?
Well, in Canada.
Export fees?
Well, you see, in Canada, what happened was that I was a young woman, right? And they were all monopolies run by men, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I knew what I was talking about. I always thought and said that if a woman is good at what she does, she's better. If a woman is bad at what she does, then she's worse. So it's important to be good.
Mm-hmm. So then you got to a point where you're like, well, I'm going to just start my own vineyard here in Sonoma County and named it after yourself, Marimar.
Well, actually, I was going to call it the Torres family or something. And a friend of mine, very good friend who was actually a critic, he's still alive, Gerald Asher, he said to me, no, you have to give it your name because you need to feel responsible for it. You have to call it your own name. And I did. That's why.
That's just interesting because not many people use their first name.
Yeah, I don't think there were at the time any other wineries named after a woman. So.
And to honor your parents, you planted 2 vineyards and named the vineyards after them.
That's right. Well, the first vineyard was my father's name, Don Miguel, because he really was the first one to back me up. And then when my father died, my mother she convinced my brothers that we should invest and build a winery. And so I thought that the second vineyard, deserved to have her name. So it's the Doña Margarita vineyard. Mm-hmm.
It's funny, backing up a little bit. I was wondering why, coming from the Mediterranean coast, where it's very warm, that you chose to grow Pinot Noir and Chardonnay in a location like this. Mm-hmm. But I thought, well, maybe you got tired of the heat and you wanted a cooler climate. But now you've explained how that came about.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I was not a happy camper the first summer that I spent in San Francisco. I missed the beach and and the heat and the evenings where you were just with short sleeves in the middle of the night. And here it was so cold. And at first, because as I said, we didn't have any money, we lived for 2.5 years in the 2-bedroom apartment that my husband rented in San Francisco. So it was very cold.
Yeah, it's definitely colder there, isn't it? Mm-hmm. But the Indian summers, October in San Francisco is so nice.
That's right. That is true. And September isn't bad either. It's, June, July, August. Ugh.
But you are able to grow Albarino and Tempranillo, so you didn't attach yourself to those Spanish varieties.
And Godello lately. Oh, we now have bottled our 3rd vintage of Godello, which is another Galician variety. Mm-hmm. Albarino is grown in Galicia, is the northwest.
Up in the corner.
Yes, in the corner,
That's
exactly.
Cool up there, that's for sure.
Yes, it is certainly cool. Yes, the coolest of Spain. So I thought, Albarino is doing well in the cool Spain, so it will do well in the cool vineyard, the Doña Margarita vineyard in West Sonoma Coast. And of course I was wrong. Cool in Spain is not the same as cool here. And so it didn't ripen. So I had to, 3-4 years later, I had to take the cuttings and graft them onto the American rootstock here in this vineyard, in the Don Miguel vineyard. And here it's thriving. So,
great.
And Tempranillo, of course, is the red variety most planted in Spain.
Right.
And that's where the great wines from Rioja Alta, the High Rioja, and Ribera del Duero, the great wines of Pesquera, Vega Sicilia, and so on. And I think that's what our Tempranillo is more similar to.
Great, wonderful. Yeah, good for you to hang your hat on Tempranillo.
Yeah, right?
US, yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. You can do a lot with Tempranillo.
Yeah, the only problem that I find is that Tempranillo, if you are familiar with Rioja, the good Rioja wine and the good Ribera del Duero wines, they're old. I mean, they're not the young vintages. The reason is because Tempranillo has very, very strong tannins, so it needs to soften up along the years. So it's much better, after 3-4 years in the bottle than right away. And of course, the journalists here like to have the vintages right away. So Tempranillo requires its time.
Well, I'm interested to try it
Yeah.
here right out of the tasting room and see what you're talking about.
Oh, I just had a bottle for lunch. We'll have a drink afterwards.
Okay. Oh, so there's some left, huh?
There is some left.
You didn't have a whole bottle for lunch.
That is correct.
Okay. Marimar Torres, my guest for this year's Women in Wine episode. We're in her home on a hill overlooking a vineyard in Catalonia, Spain. No, that was my wish, but it didn't come true. But we are in her home on a hill in the Russian River Valley in Sonoma County, California. And as you'll hear, she does not consider herself a winemaker. You'll find out why after this message from my sponsor.
Life is made up of moments that matter. Those Little League games under the lights, building the best ice cream sundaes, those family photo shoots, and unforgettable senior proms. As your public power provider, we at Sonoma Clean Power thrive on being part of your everyday moments, the moments we all cherish. That's why with every small effort, we're working toward a clean energy future for our families, teammates, neighbors, and those we have not yet met. So let's come together, work together, take care of today, and honor tomorrow. Let's protect the place we call home, the place where our children's children will grow. Join us on the clean energy journey, because the best is yet to come. Learn how your actions can make an even greater impact at poweringeverydaymoments.org. Sonoma Clean Power, powering moments that matter.
Now, back to my guest, Marimar Torres of Marimar Estate, Vineyards and Winery. We're meeting today on Monday, March 25th, because it is National Women in Wine Day. So congratulations.
That's right.
You're not necessarily a winemaker, but you're a founder and you're a...
Vintner.
Vintner. You
Tell
are a
you
vintner,
what,
yes.
I would never call me a winemaker. We don't have a winemaker because I think it's only in America, the land of trailblazers, right, that people call themselves winemakers. But in my view, the grapes make the wine. Yeah. Our job is just to coach them into expressing the fruit in the wine. But we don't make the wine. That's pretentious.
Yeah,
and in France, in Spain, in Italy.
It's like vigneron and...
Exactly. So I am a vigneron. So I like to call myself a vintner. And, that's kind of helping the grapes make the best wine they can.
Oh, you are a female trailblazer, that's for sure, and the founder. And even though you are not the winemaker, but you studied enology and viticulture at the University of California at Davis.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, for a year. And that was actually, my brother encouraged me because I was calling him and asking him for advice, and he just was getting really tired and said, well, why don't you just go and learn about it? And I thought, yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, go to Davis. And I did.
Yeah.
Get off my back.
That's a good idea. So many people have come through Davis.
Yes, it's a beautiful place. It's a great place. And, it's so interesting. I ended up thinking that the people in Spain, or let's say people in America, studied, because I also studied at Stanford, and I found that the people were studying to learn. In Spain...
Crazy.
Wait. In Spain, people were studying to go through the exams and get the title. Mm-hmm. It's a very different approach. See what I mean?
Yeah.
People here, it was such a different atmosphere. I loved studying here in America.
Oh, good.
And that was in the 80s.
You were going to school in the 80s, and I think that's why you gravitate to the 80s music, huh?
Oh, right.
You were
okay,
going out at
touche.
night listening to music. And
Good point.
she got the 80s station on in the kitchen there.
I love it.
On the topic of women, your daughter Christina has joined you as the general manager here at Marimar Estate, and she also travels, as you do, working with the family business and your own business.
Yeah. Well, she's traveling mostly in the United States, and then I handle the export business. So I travel to Spain more than she does. And then she, is within the United States. But you see, with my daughter, I wanted, we always want for our kids what we didn't get ourselves. So for her, I really wanted a good education. And I'm so happy she graduated from economy from Princeton with a degree in economy from Princeton.
Okay.
And then she went to business school at Wharton. So she got the degree there too. So she does have a great education. And it makes things so much easier. Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
Can't tell you. Yes.
She's probably learning a lot more than you have obtained in more recent years.
Exactly. Yeah.
I only met her briefly, but she certainly comes across as also a very dynamic Torres family member.
Yes, I have to say yes. You're right.
And as you mentioned earlier, you two are the first generation to be mother to daughter in handing down.
In the Torres family. Yep.
Great. And if we haven't talked enough about you, I bet you were one of the first, I'm not going to say women in wine, but first wine industry member who wrote a cookbook.
Two.
As an authority on Spanish cuisine, your first book was The Spanish Table, Cuisines and Wines of Spain.
You don't know why I wrote that book?
Why?
Because people did not realize that was 11 years after Franco died, and Spain had evolved tremendously, so quickly. So the cuisine, the restaurants, and the wineries had evolved, had become really wonderful. And Americans didn't realize it. And they thought of Spanish cuisine as spicy and downed with beer, in other words, Mexican. And I just wanted to show them what Spain was about. And so I had been able to get an importer. It was called Chateau and Estate Wines. They did a fantastic job, and I worked with them, but it left me the time free to devote 2 years, not full-time, but almost, to travel around Spain and learn about the cuisines and how the cuisine had advanced. It was fabulous. And
Perfect.
in that book, I thought it was the first thing that I really did by myself, for myself.
Right.
And
that was published in 1986, so this is going back a ways.
That's right.
So that's why I think you were one of the first. I mean, there are a lot of people over the history of winemaking that may have written a book or two. And then your second book, The Catalan Country Kitchen. Now, have you found that Americans are gravitating to the Catalan style of cooking?
Well, let's say that the second book, I swore after the first book that I would never write another one, cookbook, because it was so much work. It was wonderful, but it was a lot of work. And then came 1992, and the Olympics happened in Barcelona. And so my agent called me and said, I can give you a contract to write a book on Catalan cuisine. And I said, no, I'm not right. But the truth is, there were many recipes that I had not been able to use in my first book, and especially homey recipes. So that's why it's called the Catalan Country Kitchen, because it's less, I would say, more homey. I don't know how else to say it. And many recipes from my childhood and others that I worked on here afterwards and developed. So it's an easier, I would say, it's an easier cookbook to learn from.
Nice. So maybe recipes that you'd find at a rural area, like farms and...
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yes.
Are you still doing the live cooking show?
You should ask my daughter that. She's been traveling so much, and myself too. Just 4 days ago, I came back from a 1-month trip to Spain. Well, not to Spain only, because I went to Europe. I went to Düsseldorf for Provine. Then I went to Malaga for market work. I went to Denmark, so and so. But it was a whole month that was away from home, and that was a lot. I love being here. This is such a beautiful place.
So what does your daughter is the one who kind of pushes you into doing the show? Is that it? You need her behind you to
well,
prompt you?
We really need to talk about it.
Is she a co-host?
A co-host.
Your daughter, is she with you on these shows?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah, it was her idea. During COVID, it was my daughter's idea to come up with something that people would watch at home. So she came up with the idea that, okay, you do the cooking and I'll do the wines.
That's great.
And so it's kind of a mother-daughter banter. And I'm surprised how much people tell me about it. And at the beginning, it was every week, every Friday. And then we went to every month. And then we went, instead of Fridays, we went to Tuesdays. But then sometimes I've been, traveling, as I said, outside of the country. And she's also been traveling a lot. So it's been a little more difficult.
But you've done 51 episodes.
You counted them?
Yeah, I saw them. I didn't count them. It said 51 episodes.
All right. I haven't.
But that's impressive.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
That is impressive, isn't it?
I think that's enough. Yeah, I think you could quit right now.
Yeah, we'll see.
But
yeah, she's coming to dinner tonight, so I'll ask her about it. What do we do? Another cooking show?
Yeah. Well, what you should do is you get to set some time aside, and you tape like 3, 4, or 5 of them in one day, one setting, and then you can release them later on.
That's what she was told, but it's not the same. It's not so much fun.
Well, you have no doubt inspired women and men with your drive and accomplishments over the last nearly 50 years.
Wow.
As well as pleasing them with your Torres wine.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Well, congratulations on a life well lived.
Thank you very much. Yes, I cannot complain. It's been a great life. Thank you.
I'm sorry to say that I have not been to her winery and tasting room yet, but you can bet I'll be visiting soon. I have had Miramar Pinot and Tempranillo, but I look forward to their Albarino and Godello, in addition to the Chardonnay and other Pinots. And don't be surprised if you visit when you turn the corner and see what looks like a Catalan stone farmhouse up on a hill surrounded by vineyards. You'll think you've been transported to Spain. Their website is marimarestate.com, Marimar estate.com. Gracias to Marimar for her hospitality, such a sweet lady. And muy gracias to you for listening. Today's episode was written, recorded, and produced by me. Please subscribe to On the Wine Road podcast so each episode will automatically appear on your favorite platform. And I appreciate a positive review if that's an option. Find images, wine news, trivia, and more interviews at onthewineroad.us. I'm on Facebook as On the Wine Road and Instagram as JD Wine Road. I'll talk to you again soon as I share more from my travels on the Wine Road.